Hey everyone, we're diving into something that's been bugging educators forever. Hmm. How do we make sure our courses actually give students the skills they need to hit those big program goals? The ones accreditors love.
It's a tough one, right? It's like, how do you make sure all the pieces fit together to actually mean something?
Exactly. And to help us figure this out, we've got Dr. Will Miller with us today. He's the Associate Vice President for Continuous Improvement at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University.
Wow, Embry-Riddle. So we're talking aviation, engineering.
3 campuses, 35,000 students, big stuff.
That's huge. They must have some serious experience aligning their courses with what students need to achieve.
Oh, they do. And what's interesting is Dr. Miller actually started out teaching political science.
Really?
Yeah, he told this story about teaching the same course to students from 9 different programs, and he had no clue why each program even needed it. It really shows that disconnect, between what happens in the classroom and the overall goals of the program.
It makes you wonder how many courses are out there just because, well, they've always been there, not because they actually help students.
It's like a curriculum based on tradition instead of intention,
Right.
and it leads to what Dr. Miller calls unit disconnect. Basically, courses become these isolated things, each with their own little goals that might not even match the program's goals.
So it's like a student takes all these courses, but they don't actually learn what they need to know.
Exactly. And Dr. Miller gave this great example of how Embry-Riddle used to just observe classrooms to judge teamwork skills.
Uh-huh.
But the results are kind of fake because students knew they were being watched.
Makes sense. Who acts natural when they know someone's grading them?
Right. So it really showed them that you got to look at a student's whole journey, not just these little moments in class.
It's like learning doesn't stop when you leave the classroom, right?
Totally. So how do we actually connect those dots? Where do we even start?
Well, Dr. Miller is big on this idea of focusing on skills and competency, not just finishing courses. Like, can students actually do the thing, not just did they get a grade?
That sounds like a huge shift, though. How do we even measure that?
It starts with matching teaching with program goals. Curriculum mapping is a big one, but not just listing topics. It's got to be driven by data, real insights.
A curriculum map that actually does something. Sign me up.
More than do something, they're crucial. Dr. Miller uses them for everything, at Embry-Riddle planning courses, marketing programs, advising students, even predicting student success.
Wait, hold on. Curriculum maps can predict how well a student will do.
Yeah, by looking at how students perform on specific outcomes in courses, we can kind of anticipate where they might struggle and step in early.
That's incredible. It could be a lifeline for students who might otherwise slip through the cracks.
Exactly. And it leads to the next piece, tracking students individually. Not just grades, but really diving into how well they're mastering specific skills.
So it's not just about the letter on the report card. It's about what they can actually do. But will people actually be on board with this? It seems like a lot of change.
Oh, there will definitely be challenges. But think about it. Wouldn't it be amazing for students to understand their strengths and weaknesses, not just a GPA?
Absolutely. But I can already hear people saying things like, we don't have the resources, faculty won't buy in, or it's just too much change.
Implementing this kind of change definitely requires a culture shift. We need everyone on board, and we need to be open with students about how we're using their data and how it helps them.
Transparency is key, for sure.
Dr. Miller even suggests sharing outcome data directly with students. Imagine students knowing not just their grade, but also what they've mastered and what needs work.
Wow, it's about giving them a clear roadmap, not just a destination.
Exactly. And it all starts with asking why about everything we do in education. Dr. Miller gave this example about prerequisites. Do we really need them all, or are they just roadblocks? Data can help us figure those things out.
So we're talking about challenging the status quo. No sacred cows.
Right. It's about making sure everything we do truly supports students and their learning.
Okay, I'm on board. But where do we even begin? This seems like a massive undertaking.
Dr. Miller says, start small. Pick a few courses or programs where you think things aren't lining up. Look at the data, spot the patterns, and talk to the faculty.
So a pilot project then? A team effort. I like it.
It's about giving faculty the power to use data to make decisions about their teaching. It's a journey, not a one-time fix. We're all learning here.
Speaking of journeys, Dr. Miller mentioned these toxic combinations of courses. Those pairings everyone dreads. What can we do about those?
Data can show us those trouble spots so we can warn students. But even better, we can give them strategies to deal with the challenges and actually succeed.
So it's not about scaring them off. It's about equipping them to navigate those tough spots.
Exactly. It's about setting them up for success in the long run.
This all makes me think of a future where we can actually see student struggles coming and step in before they fall behind. Is that even possible?
Dr. Miller thinks so. By spotting the patterns in the data, we can create interventions that actually work. It's not about magic, it's about using information wisely.
It's about using data to help each student reach their potential. But let's be real, this all takes resources, doesn't it?
It does. But remember, it's not about doing everything perfectly right away. Even small steps matter. Every improvement makes a difference in creating a better learning environment for our students.
Okay, I'm feeling pumped up about this.
Yeah.
We've talked about the disconnect between courses and program goals, the need for data, and the power of tracking students individually. But before we go further, we have to talk about something important: the ethics of all this data collection.
Absolutely. Transparency and data privacy are paramount. We'll dive into those crucial aspects next.
Stay tuned. We'll be back with more insights from Dr. Miller's work.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's dive into how Embry-Riddle is actually making this happen.
Yeah, let's get into the details. How are they actually putting these ideas into practice?
Well, remember that old curriculum map Dr. Miller showed? It was just a basic table, right? Listing courses and accreditation stuff, not exactly helpful.
Yeah, it was more like a checklist than a tool.
Exactly. But Embry-Riddle has turned their mapping into something dynamic, data-driven. They're mapping specific course outcomes to the program outcomes. It creates this detailed layer of data that helps them with everything: course sequencing, remediation, you name it.
So instead of just seeing the big picture, they're seeing all the little details that make it up.
You got it. And it lets them see exactly how students are getting exposed to those crucial skills and knowledge. You know, the things they absolutely need to hit those big program goals.
Gotcha. But how does this translate into actually improving student learning? Give me a real-world example.
Okay, so Dr. Miller shared this example. They got all the faculty who teach microeconomics together and asked them a simple question: how are you assessing this specific course outcome?
I bet they got a lot of different answers.
Oh, yeah. Some used multiple choice questions on the final, others had case studies, some even had research papers. All good approaches, right? But the data showed something really interesting. The students who did the case studies, they actually did better in later courses, especially the capstone course.
So the type of assessment actually affected how well they learned.
It did. And it really got the faculty talking. They started discussing the pros and cons of each assessment method and using the data to improve their teaching.
I love that. It's not about forcing one right way. It's about encouraging teachers to use data to make better choices.
Exactly. It's about giving them the power to make informed decisions. That's where real change happens.
Okay, let's talk about individual student tracking. Embry-Riddle's worldwide campus uses Canvas for this, right? But that can be a lot for faculty to handle, especially if they're not tech-savvy or have huge classes. Any advice?
Dr. Miller says pick your battles. Focus on what he calls high-impact courses or outcomes. You know, the ones that are absolutely critical for students to succeed.
So be strategic. Don't try to track everything at once.
Right. And tech isn't the only answer. Even a simple spreadsheet can work. It's about working smarter, not harder.
Okay, so we've spotted the disconnect, we're tracking progress, and we're having good conversations with faculty. Now what? How do we actually help struggling students?
Well, Dr. Miller is big on targeted remediation. This is where it gets exciting.
I'm all ears. What's the secret sauce?
It's all about understanding what each student needs. Are they struggling with a concept? Do they have bad study habits? Once you know the problem, you can create a plan to fix it.
So personalize it. No more one-size-fits-all solutions.
Nope. It's got to be tailored to each student. Tutoring, learning software, peer mentors, extra practice, whatever works.
Like a custom toolkit for success.
Exactly. And we need to change how we talk about remediation. It's not a punishment, it's a chance to grow.
I like that. Asking for help becomes a good thing, not something to be ashamed of.
Exactly. And data helps us see who needs help, what kind of help, and when they need it. It's being proactive, not waiting for them to fail.
Catching them before they fall, basically. That's a game changer.
It is. It's about empowering faculty to use data, adapt their teaching, and meet student needs. It's a constant process of improvement.
This is inspiring, but part of me is still skeptical. Can this actually work in the real world? Universities have a lot of limitations, you know.
Well, Dr. Miller has this great example from Flagler College. They saw a big difference in graduation rates between students who got A's and B's in their Intro to Speech class versus those who got C's or lower.
Makes sense. Good grades usually mean good outcomes. What about the students who weren't doing so well, though?
That's the interesting part. They looked closer and realized those lower grades weren't always because of bad speaking skills.
Wait, really? What was it then?
It turned out these students were missing deadlines, skipping classes, not really engaging. It was more about their overall effort, not their ability.
So they had the skills, but not the motivation or support to use them.
Right. So they created the zero credit seminar focused on academic skills, and they made students with C's or lower take it.
And did it work?
It was amazing. Graduation rates for those students went way up. The gap between the high achievers and those who struggled basically disappeared. Data-driven intervention at its best.
It's not about making things easier. It's about giving everyone the support they need to succeed.
Exactly. And it shows us that success isn't just about getting a diploma. It's about having the skills you need to actually do something with it.
Okay, I am convinced. But there are still a lot of details to figure out. Dr. Miller talked about visualizing student progress. Are we talking fancy dashboards and data analysts? Do we all need to become data scientists?
Data visualization can be really powerful, but it doesn't need to be complicated. Even simple charts and graphs can show us the trends and patterns in student performance.
So we don't need to be experts overnight. But how do we even create those visuals?
A lot of learning management systems already have analytics built in, and there are other tools like Tableau or Power BI, but even Excel can do the trick.
So even with limited resources, we can still get a good picture of how students are doing.
Absolutely. It's not about fancy tools. It's about using the data to actually improve student learning. Focus on the why, not just the how.
Love that reminder. Now let's talk about that vision of predicting student struggles and stepping in early. Imagine if we could do that. See those at-risk students before they even fall behind.
It's a powerful idea, right? It starts with figuring out what things are actually linked to student success, past grades, course choices, even demographics. By analyzing all that, we can start to predict who might struggle.
Are we talking about algorithms? AI?
It can involve that, but it can be simpler too. Even basic stats can show us patterns. Maybe students who take a certain group of courses are more likely to struggle, for example. Or maybe those who score low on a placement test.
So data helps us spot those early warning signs. Then what? How do we actually help?
That's where proactive support comes in. We can use this information to reach out to those students and give them what they need. Tutoring, study skills workshops, even just a message of encouragement.
Meeting them where they are, instead of waiting for them to come to us.
Exactly. It's about supporting students throughout their journey, not just reacting when they're already falling. It's about creating a safety net, but one that's built on data and compassion.
I love that, a data-informed safety net. But this sounds like a huge undertaking. What advice would you give to those just starting to think about using data?
Dr. Miller says to start small. Focus on what you can control and celebrate your successes. Progress over perfection.
Absolutely. Every little improvement can create a ripple effect for students.
Exactly. And always remember the why. Why are we gathering this data? It's all about helping students succeed. It's not about crunching numbers. It's about empowering people.
Okay, that's a great reminder. Data should be a force for good, not something that feels controlling. So we've talked about data-driven decisions, aligning teaching, and proactive support. What are some of the potential problems we might hit along the way?
Well, one big one is resistance to change. Faculty and staff might be happy with how things are and hesitant to try new things, especially when it involves tech or data.
Change is hard, especially when it involves something as personal as teaching.
It is. That's why it's crucial to involve faculty from the start. It has to be a team effort, not a top-down mandate. Everyone needs to understand why we're doing this and how it can benefit everyone.
So a collaborative journey, not a dictatorship, right?
You got it. We need to empower faculty to be part of the solution. They know their subjects and their students best.
Okay, faculty buy-in is key. What else might trip us up?
Data overload. Schools collect tons of data but might not know what to do with it all. It's easy to drown in data without a plan.
Oh yeah, spreadsheet fatigue is real, so how do we avoid that?
Be focused. Ask yourself, what problems are you trying to solve? What data will help you answer those questions? How are you going to analyze it? Have a plan before you start gathering everything.
So be intentional. Don't collect data just for the sake of it.
Exactly. And it's an ongoing process. You learn as you go and adjust based on what you discover. It's all about continuous learning and improvement.
Got it. Always learning, always improving.
Yes. And that brings us to another challenge, keeping the momentum going. How do we make sure this doesn't just become another fad that fades away?
Ah, the dreaded initiative fatigue. We've all seen it happen. How do we keep the energy up?
It needs real commitment from leadership, not just words, but actual resources and support. They need to make this a priority, show that they're serious about it.
Walk the walk, not just talk the talk, right?
Right. It needs to become part of how the institution operates, not
Okay.
just a trendy add-on. And don't underestimate the power of celebrating success. Recognize the hard work and the positive impact it's having on students.
So create a culture where using data is valued and celebrated.
Exactly. And remember, this work is never truly finished. There's always more to learn, always ways to get better.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. And speaking of journeys, Dr. Miller painted this amazing picture of what education could be if we really embrace data. He talked about predicting student struggles with incredible accuracy and offering support that's personalized to their needs.
It's a bold vision, a future where data helps students reach their full potential. But is it even possible?
That's the big question, right? What would it take to actually get to that level of personalized support?
Dr. Miller thinks it's possible, but it requires a fundamental shift in how we think about education.
Okay, how so? What needs to change?
We need to move away from the traditional model of education, the one where everyone's supposed to fit into the same mold, the same standardized curriculum and tests.
So less about making everyone the same and more about embracing individuality.
Exactly. We need personalized learning where teaching and support are tailored to each student's needs.
Okay, I'm following you. But how does data fit into all of this?
Data can be the key. It helps us understand each student, their strengths, their weaknesses, how they learn best, what their goals are. It helps us find the right resources and support for each person. And it helps us see how they're progressing so we can make adjustments as we go.
So it's like a personal learning coach for every student.
Exactly. And it's about using data to empower students, not control them. It's about giving them the tools and information they need to own their learning and achieve their goals.
This could truly revolutionize education.
Yep.
But I can already see the challenges. Data privacy, ethical concerns, all that stuff.
Those are valid concerns, and we absolutely need to address them head on. We have to use data responsibly and ethically. Student privacy and transparency are paramount.
It's not just about collecting data, it's about using it the right way to help students not exploit them.
Precisely. We need to build trust and make sure students are comfortable with how their data is being used.
So Dr. Miller is advocating for a data-driven future, but one that's built on ethics and transparency.
Yes. And his vision goes beyond just academics. It's about preparing students for a world that's constantly changing, giving them the skills to adapt and thrive in the 21st century.
So it's bigger than just grades and diplomas. It's about preparing students for life, for work, for whatever comes next.
Exactly. And data can be a powerful tool in helping them get there.
Okay, I'm all in. But I know this isn't a quick fix. What steps can institutions take to actually start moving towards this vision?
Dr. Miller says it starts with culture. We need to move away from using data as a way to hold people accountable and start seeing it as a way to learn and grow.
There's that word again. Culture. Seems like every meaningful change starts there.
It's true. We need a culture where data is seen as a valuable tool for learning, not just for pointing fingers.
So less about punishment and more about understanding and support.
Exactly. We need a culture of collaboration and innovation where faculty, staff, and students work together to figure out how data can make learning better for everyone.
It's about creating a learning community where everyone's success matters.
Precisely. And remember, this work is never truly done. There's always more to learn, always room for improvement.
It's a journey, not a destination. But it's a journey worth taking.
Absolutely. It's a journey that can transform education and help every student reach their full potential.
Okay. I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about data's potential to improve student learning, the challenges, and the vision for a future where learning is personalized and equitable. But we're not done yet. There's still more to discuss.
I can't wait to continue the conversation.
Stay tuned. We'll be back soon with more from Dr. Miller's work. We'll dig deeper into ethical data use, explore some practical strategies, and leave you with a challenge to think about. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It feels like we've only just scratched the surface of this whole data thing.
I know, right? There's so much to explore when it comes to how data can change education. It really has the power to totally reshape how we learn.
You know, one thing that really stuck with me was Dr. Miller's idea of moving away from just focusing on courses and towards this bigger idea of competency.
It is a pretty big shift, yeah. It's recognizing that real learning is about developing skills you can actually use, not just racking up credits or checking boxes.
Exactly. It's about making sure students can take what they've learned and apply it in the real world, not just remember it for a test.
And that's where data comes in. It lets us measure what really matters, those core skills and competencies that students need to be successful. Dr. Miller's work at Embry-Riddle really shows how data can push us towards that competency-based approach.
It makes you wonder, what would a degree even look like in that kind of world?
Imagine a degree that actually proves what you can do. Not just a piece of paper, but a record of your skills and competencies, like a built-in resume right there on your degree.
That's a fantastic idea. Employers would love that. They'd finally be able to see exactly what a graduate can do.
Right. It would completely change hiring. Employers could find the perfect candidates who are actually ready for the job.
Dr. Miller also talked about how important it is to get industry involved. It's not enough to teach skills. We need to know those skills match what employers are looking for.
Totally. We have to connect education with the real world, no more silos. We need to constantly talk to people in different industries, get their feedback, understand what they need, and make sure our programs are up to date and preparing students for the jobs of the future.
So it's about way more than just career fairs once a year. It's about building real partnerships where industry experts have a voice in how we teach.
Imagine industry pros helping design courses, giving guest lectures, mentoring students, bringing in real-world projects. What an incredible opportunity for students to learn and make connections.
It's like giving them a sneak peek into what working in their field is actually like.
Yeah.
And they're building those professional networks while they're at it.
Right. And it's not just about job-specific skills either. It's about developing those adaptable skills that everyone wants. Critical thinking, problem solving, communication, teamwork. Those are in high demand everywhere.
Yeah, those soft skills are so important, but traditional education often misses the mark.
Exactly. And by involving industry, we can make sure students are building the skills they'll actually need to succeed in a world that's constantly changing.
This all sounds incredible, but it's also a lot to take in. What advice would you give to someone who's feeling overwhelmed by all of this?
Remember what Dr. Miller said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Start small, focus on what you can do, and celebrate your wins along the way. Progress over perfection, every time.
It's about the journey and knowing that even small changes can make a real difference for students.
Absolutely. And never lose sight of why we're doing this. What's the whole point?
It's about giving our students a better future, empowering them to be their best selves and make a real difference in the world.
Exactly. It's about creating a learning environment that's fair, effective, and helps every student thrive.
That's a great message for our listeners to take with them. We've really explored the potential of data to change education for the better. I hope you're leaving today feeling inspired and ready to make a difference wherever you are.
I hope so too. It's such an exciting time for education. I really believe that by using data the right way, we can build a future where every student has the chance to succeed.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing to make education the best it can be.